vegetarians, but not very reasonable consciousness. Intoxication means that even slight things like coffee and tea, cigarettes. Gambling. That's another question some people ask. Some people invest in the stock market. Now, that's a science, and if somebody knows that science, then it's not gambling. But if you just whimsically, invest in something, it's the same as betting on a horse or something. Then it's gambling. If you want to bet your life on Krishna, give it to Krishna and see what happens. This easy process is being recommended by Rupa Goswami. And that's what we're offering to everybody by Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Just chant the holy name. If someone, especially we just chant the holy name, take the sadham, because then automatically they'll come along. They read Bhagavad Gita. The other regular principles kind of fall in line. We mention them, but not when everybody we're preaching to. You have to do this, you have to do that. Prabhupada would say it though whenever he was interviewed. We ask everybody to do this because anybody that knows anything about any religion, they know that these are basic principles of any religion. Meat eating, they've lost track of. But gambling, intoxication, that nobody can say, no, it's good. Jesus, the Bible says you should drink wine. The Bible says you should go to the money changers, No, they're mixed up about the meat eating. The people who really know their scriptures, historically, they know also. So, Bacho Begum, first one must control his speaking power. Everyone has the power to speak. Almost everyone. Few people can speak. Every one of us. As soon as we get the opportunity, we start speaking. If we do not speak about Krishna, we speak about nonsense. The toad in the field speaks by croaking. And similarly, everyone who has a tongue wants to speak, even if all he has to say is nonsense. The croaking of the frog simply invites the snake because they're announcing, here I am, here I am. And they can be so loud where I sometimes hear in the countryside, it sounds like a thunderstorm practically, and they're just small frogs. But they're calling the snake, come and eat me. So if we're just talking all nonsense, all prajalpa, politics, we're just calling death, come and take me. But if we're talking about Krishna, then we transcend. And it's much more pleasing. Nevertheless, although it's inviting death, the frog goes on croaking. The talking of the materialistic men and impersonalist Mayavadi philosophers may be compared to the croaking of frogs. They're always speaking nonsense and thus inviting death to catch them. Controlling speech, however, does not mean self-imposed silence, the external process of mauna, as Mayavadi philosophers think. Silence may appear helpful for some time, but ultimately it proves a failure. Prabhupada said that sometimes a guru, if he has a very stupid disciple, he'll tell him to take this vow of silence. Just don't say anything, don't talk, because he's always talking something. It's not good. And sometimes it's good to just be silent, but real silence means to talk about Krishna. No material noise. That's real silence. Otherwise, the mind, they have some place now in America called a silent room. You can look it up. And somehow there's no sound in there. You go in there, and it's just designed in such a way that you can't, even if you scream, you won't hear it. And the people say, what did they hear when they went in there? They say they heard the loudest noise they've ever heard in their life. Their mind just went screaming, because you can't live with like now I have a lot of noise outside my window here, traffic, and it's quite disturbing sometimes. But if it becomes completely silent, then you wonder what's going on also, because you're used to hearing and the mind wants to hear something. So we want to take advantage of hearing about Krishna, hearing Krishna Katha, hearing the holy name, hearing about devotees also, devotees, devotional service. So this mauna is not, it's Mayavadi thing. As Mayavadi philosophers think, silence may appear helpful. It proves a failure. By contrast, the controlled speech advocated by Srila Rupa Goswami is a positive process of Krishna Katha, engaging the speaking process and glorifying the Supreme Lord Krishna. The tongue can thus glorify the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. The preacher of Krishna Katha is always beyond the clutches of death. This is the significance of controlling the urge to speak. We want to speak, but we want to control the urge and not just speak out of turn and speak angry things or speak nonsense things and criticize devotees. It's a control. That's what we learn, that's what humans are taught like that. People teach their dog not to bark. Don't make so much noise. But not that we want just shut up. We want people to talk about Krishna. We want to talk about Krishna. The restlessness or fickleness of the mind, manovega, is controlled when one can fix his mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya says, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakar, Yahan Krishna Taha Nahi Mayara Adhikar. Krishna is just like the sun and Maya is like darkness. If the sun is present, there's no question of darkness. Similarly, if Krishna is present in the mind, there's no possibility of the mind's being agitated by Maya. That verse that Prabhupada in the first Back to Godhead he had, I don't know if it's still there, up in the corner, that verse was there. Krishna is like the sun and Maya is the darkness. So stay in the sunshine of Krishna, then Maya is just like, if you're facing the sun, then you don't see your shadow. It may be behind you, but if you turn around, turn your back, then you see the shadow, but you don't see, you're putting your back to Krishna, then you just see Maya. The yogic process of negating all material thoughts will not help. To try to create a vacuum in the mind is artificial. The vacuum will not remain. However, if one always thinks of Krishna and how to serve Krishna best, one's mind will naturally be controlled. Any comments or questions on that? Now let's see if anybody learned how to raise your hand so I can call on you. Otherwise, just raise your hand like this, if you don't know how to do it by the technology. Okay, Rupa Vilas, let's see if your microphone's all right. Okay?
Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question on one who has surrendered to a master. Here in Ghana, let me use Ghana for instance, in our religion, like the Christian brothers, there was some issue of, we see the religious leaders, let me say the pastors, they are also leading the followers. In recent times, you could see that when we're talking about one abstaining from meat eating, intoxication, gambling, and illicit sex, the leaders of the Christendom, who are the fathers and who the followers are looking up to, are rather now engaging their people into gambling. They openly give lotto numbers to people in churches and tell them they should go and stake. And they come out to explain that they do not commit any offense because you are poor, and they are giving lotto numbers to go and stake and make money. What is their offense? There was a trending video of one of the big pastors here in Ghana, a bishop, who made one old woman carry a bag of cement and walked some miles away, claiming that he appeared in the woman's dream to give her a little number to stake so that she will be rich. And the woman refused to do that. So as punishment, she made the woman carry the whole bag of cement, 50 kg, to walk some miles away and back to the church. I look at the video, I'm like, if someone is surrendered to a spiritual master, let's say, yes, in their path, that is their spiritual master they've surrendered to, and the spiritual master is leading the person on this path, he unknowingly follows this person. And in a situation like I just cited, where you are giving lotto numbers to go and stake and even punish when you refuse to stake the lotto number, what is the stand of that disciple who is following this master? Like you said, whatever action engagement perform, common men will follow. So if you are following such a person and giving you this instruction, at the end of the day, what is your stand? Just because you surrender to a spiritual master, are you going to be accountable for having followed the spiritual master in the wrong direction? I want to know our stand in case one finds himself in this situation. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Anybody can answer that? Shalika? Huh?
This is Maharaj. We don't
Krishna
understand what you say.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. In the beginning of our program, our first leader, Chichena Prema Das, taught us that he gave an analogy where a Goswami was traveling with his disciples, and they got to a stage. Actually, the instruction he gave them was that they should go straight, nobody should look back, and they were following the instructions. And on the way, the Goswami was sitting on an elephant, and one of his belongings, his bag, dropped. It dropped heavily. The disciples, per their instruction, they refused to even look back. So they proceeded, and they got to a stage where the Goswami or the master asked for, where is one of my bags? They said, we heard something fall, but you, per your instruction, we couldn't look back. So he got annoyed, and then he said, now whatever falls, they should pick. So later, when they were traveling again, the elephant passed a stool. I mean, you know, elephants, by their nature, their stools are very heavy. So when the stool falls, one of the disciples, by the instruction of their master, said, whatever falls from now on, you should take it. So they pick it and wrap it, and then put it on top of the elephant. So the Goswami or the master started smelling something very bad in his palanquin, and he asked, what is smelling like that? And the disciple said, probably it is what we picked, the stools of the elephant. So he got annoyed, and he says, when I said you should pick anything that falls, it doesn't mean that whatever falls you should pick, but you should be able to perceive or understand, what am I picking, or what am I actually doing. In this case, the final conclusion he gave was that we should practice devotional service with wisdom, with knowledge. So in this case, the disciples, per my brother Rasai Vilasa's case concerning the pastor, the disciples should know that they should also practice and follow with wisdom. In this case, they will be able to tell that this person, is he leading us astray or leading us to the path? So this is the little answer I have, what we have studied so far. Practice devotional service with wisdom. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Yasama Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So something like that. That's why we have all these books, and Prabhupada always stressed to read the books so that you know what, if somebody's following the book or not just take their word for it or just because they have a title or a position or they have money or whatever. But we have to know what's in the book and then see who's following it, who's speaking the same thing, who's acting, who's walking the walk, as Bhakti Tirtha always said. Walk the talk, right? Who's doing what, that was, I know when I first met devotees, I hadn't seen any books. I heard the mantra, uh, but I could see right away that devotees are doing what they say and they're really into it. They were really dedicated. They're talking about Prabhupada, they're chanting. Everything that they said, they were doing it. And I had never seen people like that before, you know. So I got right into it. But so that's why we have the books. And so, like when Bali Maharaj, when his guru started instructing him opposite of what he'd been instructing him before, you know, he was always telling him to worship Vishnu, but in order for material gain, doing all the yagyas. And then when he saw Vishnu's there, he told him, don't worship Vishnu. And he didn't accept that. He understood this is wrong. So we have to have judgment. We have to know. That's why we have the books, and that's why we tell people read the books. We don't tell people, there was one rascal guy back when I was first a devotee, who was claiming to be an incarnation of Krishna. It's an Indian guy, somehow, Kali Yuga became very popular. And he was saying books are for Kali Yuga, which is true. In previous ages, people didn't need books. Everything was nice and they could remember everything. But so he said, because I'm here now, it's such a yuga, so we don't need books. But he would always say, Bhagavad Gita says this, Bible says that, but he never let his disciples read anything. So he was misleading them like anything. But they didn't have any education. But Prabhupada was very strong to get the books published and tell us so much, read the books. So we know what, who's following it, and we follow them. Is that all right? Ogoma Urjaswari. Okay, so it's a very long purport, So this book's like that. Anger can be controlled. We cannot stop anger altogether. But if we become angry with those who blaspheme the Lord or the devotees of the Lord, we can control our anger in Krishna consciousness to use it properly. It's a tremendous energy, anger. It can also be converted into something positive, If we get really angry at these blasphemers and demons and just promoting sinful activities in the name of God, we don't take anger out by fighting with them. We take it out by using that energy for Harinam Sankirtan, for distributing books, for getting out there and spreading the truth. Lord Chaitanya became angry with Jagai and Madai, because they hit Nityananda. Lord Chaitanya wrote, Trinadapi Suni Chaina. One should be humble in the grass and tolerant in a tree. So one may say, why did he get angry? You should be ready to tolerate any insult to yourself. But when Krishna, the pure devotee, is blasphemed, the devotee becomes angry and acts like fire against the offenders. Krodha, anger, cannot be stopped, but it can be applied rightly. And also, if we give up lust, the anger can be much mitigated, because lust comes from anger. But Hanuman was angry, and he set fire to Lanka, and he's worshipped as the greatest devotee. He utilized his anger in the right way. Later, after the battle, and Hanuman went to Sita, and he was so angry that these Rakshashi women had been mistreating her so badly. And he was saying, I want to kill them all. And Sita said, you shouldn't get angry, Hanuman, at them, because they were just doing what Ravana said, and if they didn't do it, he would have killed them. Now they're not going to do the bad things anymore. Arjuna serves as another example. He didn't want to fight, but Krishna made him angry. To fight without anger is not possible. Controlled anger can be utilized in the service. One name of Arjuna is Jishnu, and that means he fights better when he's angry. So Krishna made him angry, like with Karna. Arjuna was hesitating to make a fair fight. Karna was crying for mercy. And Krishna said, no, this guy's done so many terrible things. And finally, Arjuna killed him. For the urges of the tongue wants to eat nice things. We should not allow the tongue to eat according to its choice, but should control the tongue by supplying prasadam. The devotee's attitude is that he will eat only when Krishna gives him prasadam. That is the way to control the urges of the tongue. One should take prasadam at scheduled times and not eat in restaurants or sweet shops simply to satisfy the whims of the tongue or belly. If we stick to the principle of taking only prasadam, the urges of the belly and tongue can be controlled, and also automatically won't eat meat, fish, and eggs. In a similar manner, the urges of the genitals, the sex, can be controlled when not used unnecessarily. They should be used to beget Krishna-conscious children. Otherwise, they should not be used. Krishna-conscious movement encourages marriage, not for satisfying the genitals, but for begetting a Krishna-conscious children. As soon as the children are a little grown up, they are sent to our Gurukul school, where they are trained to become fully Krishna-conscious devotees. Many such Krishna-conscious children are required, and one who is capable of bringing forth Krishna-conscious children can utilize his genitals, can have 100 children if you can make them all devotees. You can maintain them. When one is fully practiced by these methods, he can become qualified to become a bona fide spiritual master. In his Anuvriti explanation of Upadeshamrita, so all of us are spiritual masters. We may not be Diksha gurus, but there are devotees who have many, many Shiksha disciples, even all over the world now. And people, really depending on them for guidance, for learning and understanding Krishna. And the Vartma Pradakshina Guru is the first person that introduces you to Krishna. So if devotees go out to preach, they're doing out Harinam and meeting people, they're guru. They're giving that person the first contact with Krishna. You may have millions of disciples. And whatever they do, if they go on to become devotees, if you were the first one to give them a book, or they heard the holy name from you, they talk to you, you get benefit. In his Anuvriti explanation, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes that our material identification creates three kinds of urges. The urge to speak, or demands of the mind, demands of the body, those three things. When a living entity falls victim to these three types of urges, his life becomes inauspicious. When one practices resisting these, it's called a tapasvi, or one who practices austerities. By such tapasya, one can overcome victimization by the material energy, the external potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we refer to urge to speak, we refer to useless talking, such as that of the impersonal Mayavadi, or if persons engaged in fruitive activities, karma kanda, or of materialistic people who simply want to enjoy life. All such talks or literature are practical exhibitions of the urge to speak. Many people, I just saw Charlie Boy, and he's on Facebook a lot all of a sudden. Charlie. And he's usually very outspoken, but he was saying, I don't want to, but my mouth, it just talks. I can't stop it. What can I do? What can I do? How can I stop my mouth? So I said, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. You can't, utilize it for something good. Otherwise, it just talks. Somehow people like to hear what he says. And he knows he's talking nonsensically. Many people are talking nonsensically and writing volumes of useless books. All this is a result of the urge to speak. To counteract this tendency, we have to divert our talking to the subject of Krishna. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 1, 5, 10, 11. Great verses. Nayad vachas chitra padam harer yasho jagat pavitram pragrinita chit tadvayasam tirta vishanti manasa nayatra hangsa niramant yushik chaya. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like a place of pilgrimage for crows. They like the garbage heap, the crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. And all the newspapers and all the web pages and all the television and all these things. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin prati slokam abhavatya bhatyapi namamyanantasya yashon kitani yat shrinvanti gayanti grinanti vikshadava. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes of this unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. It's an amazing verse. We should really take it to heart. We want to start a revolution in the minds of the uncivilized people, that they start thinking about Krishna. They start thinking about helping others. The conclusion is only when we have talk about devotional service to the Supreme Lord can we refrain from useless, nonsensical talk, our speaking power solely for the purpose of realizing Krishna consciousness. As for agitations of the mind, they're divided in two. First is called aviroda priti, unrestricted attachment. And the other is called viroda yukta krodha, anger from frustration. Adherence to the philosophy of Maya bodies, belief in the fruitive results of the karma bodies, and belief in plans based on materialistic desires are called aviroda priti. Gyanis, karmis, and materialistic plan makers generally attract the attention of conditioned souls. But when the materialists cannot fulfill their plans and when their devices are frustrated, they become angry. Frustration of material desires produces anger. So we have to reduce the material desires and change to spiritual desires. The demands of the body, the tongue, the belly, and the genitals, they're in a straight line, physically situated. Tongue, belly, genitals. It begins with the tongue. If we can restrain the tongue by limiting the activities of the eating, we don't eat to eating only prasadam and not eating too much, then the urges of the belly and the genitals can be controlled. Because the tongue is never satisfied, so we have to know, okay, stop. Because if the belly becomes heavy, eat too much, the intestines become heavy, then it pushes down on the genitals, and we get sexually agitated. So they all go together. So, Sharira Vidyajal, the Tendriya Tekal, Jive Believers Sagare, Dharma Jadi Vayati, Lobamaya Sadirmati Takirita Katina Samsare. Swaprasad and the Dilabai Sayanamrita Pal Radha Krishna Gunagao. Premadako Chaitanya Nitai. Now, every devotee I've ever seen knows this in Bengali. Not everybody knows the translation. Very far out prayer that covers everything. This body is a lump of ignorance. Senses are a network of paths leading to death. Somehow we fall into the ocean of material sense gratification, and all of the senses and tongue are the most voracious and uncontrollable. It's very difficult to conquer the tongue in this world, but you, Krishna, are very kind. You have sent this nice prasadam to help us conquer the tongue. Therefore, let us take prasadam to our full satisfaction and glorify your Lordship, Radha and Krishna, and call for the help of Nitai Gaur. So we're getting along. Any questions or comments so far? I want to get my headphones so I can hear you better. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Okay. So any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question, Madhavan.
Okay.
So my question is, fighting and then with anger. So during the time of Muhammad Ali, when he was the world heavyweight champion, he uses a tactics. His tactics is that he will provoke his opponents. And once the opponent is provoked, then they start throwing blind punches. And like that, he used to win most of his fights. So he used provocation against his opponents. So when he saw fighting and anger, I think the way you now explain it today, to me, it looks a bit contradictory. That's my question, Maharaj.
I'm not sure what you said. I heard all the words.
I should come again, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a question without all the introduction.
Okay, the question is fighting and the anger. Because if someone is fighting and is angry, he's not likely to win a fight because he will throw some blind punches.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but
I'm having the lecture, please.
like if you're a professional fighter, you know, you're not angry, you just want to win the fight. But like Arjuna, the anger inspire him to, because he was thinking, no, I don't want to fight, and, you know, let's not make trouble. So Krishna made him angry. Krishna provoked him so that he would fight. Otherwise, he wouldn't fight. But when he's actually fighting, he's just concentrating on the fight, on, you know, what he's doing. He's not just thinking, I hate this guy. That got him going. So that's an interesting question. But whatever we're doing, like, say we're angry because, like you said, in the name of religion, people are misleading people. Governments are not helping people. People are not helping each other. So we're angry about that, but that we know it's Kali. You know, it's, we don't blame those individuals. But how do we utilize that energy of anger as we preach? You know, we organize preaching, make festivals, we make, you know, distribute prasadam, we have kirtan, we distribute books to counteract all the pollution, try to clean it up, right? You can speak and see if I can hear you. Haribol, say something.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Somebody say something, because I'm just testing and my earphones seem to be,
Okay, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Can you hear me?
my earphones are not working. Okay, I can hear that very nicely, yeah.
Okay. Maharaj, I wanted to ask a following question to Madhuvan's question. So from the explanation you gave, could it be said that on the material plane, if one is defeated or it loses in the course of anger, it means that he is not professional? Or on the part of bhakti, if someone is agitated and it acted wrongly, could it be that he's actually not having Krishna as the center of his activity?
Yeah. So, you know, like Arjuna said, why do we sometimes do something we don't really want to do? And Krishna said it's lust and lust only. We forget Krishna, we get carried away by material desires, and lust becomes anger. Anger leads to loss of intelligence. So, but we should be looking at ourselves, you know, are we, you know, keeping Krishna the center, not looking at everybody else all the time, but it could very well be that, you know, we're off. That's why we want to chant to keep good association. Chant regularly, do everything on, you know, regularly. All right. Okay. See if we can finish this purport. This is one of the longest purports, and it, you know, it's covering everything over and over again. There's 6 kinds of rasa, taste, and if one is agitated by any one of them, he becomes controlled by the
Hare
urges
Krishna
of.
Maharaj. I
Yeah.
hope there is mother who wants to ask a question. He raised up his hand.
Okay? Who wants to ask? Who? Hey, Sally can move to Vrindavan. Okay. Who has a question? Or just Svi?
Mother, your microphone is off.
No, it's on.
You can't hear her.
You're not hearing her, but according to the picture, the microphone is on. But it's not working.
Krishna.
Okay, now it's on.
Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj. To control these 6 urges, it would have been faster and easier if we control our mind. All the 6 urges will automatically become controlled. The urges to speak, the tongue, the genitals, and the rest. But since our mind is very fickle, and we cannot be able to control the mind, how can we control the urges very easy, Maharaj?
Well, the mind controls the other things. The
Yes.
sense can't act without the mind. So like say you're unconscious, then you don't do other things. But, so we control the mind by utilizing it, by intelligence. Okay, don't talk now. Don't criticize. Don't say something bad about devotees. Don't eat that. Things like that. We have to know what to do and what not to do. Then we utilize the mind to control the senses. And Prabhupada said the best way to control the mind is to think about how to spread the chanting of the holy name, make plans, utilize it. Not sometimes because of Mayavadi preaching is you just stop the mind, you turn it off, but that is not possible. The mind is always active. We have to utilize it properly, put it on the right track by the intelligence. We have to feed the intelligence by reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam so we know where to turn the mind to. Just like when you go for a walk or drive your car or whatever you're doing, you have to know where you're going. You have to know which road to take. You have to know where you want to go, and then you have to know how to get there. And that's how you control where you're going. Utilize your mind as to say, go this way, go that way. Don't get distracted. Like, see, if the guru said, don't look back, they didn't understand it. Does that make sense? So, by chanting, we're controlling the mind, utilizing it right, by talking about Krishna, or by doing anything, concentrating on, but doing it for Krishna. Cooking, even eating prasadam for Krishna, so we get strength to serve. Does that help? Because Arjuna asked that question also, said to Krishna that, it sounds impossible to control the mind. It's be easier to control the wind. And Krishna said, yes, it's true. It's very difficult to control the mind, but it can be done by right means and practice. And those right means is by taking up a disciplined life of practicing Krishna consciousness, starting with chanting regularly, hearing regularly, all the things, get up early, take a bath, things that we may not feel like doing every day, but we do it anyway, then we control. And everything falls into line because the mind is, we're telling the mind, no, don't do that. Don't go over there. Don't do that. hopefully. Okay. Now let me see the time here.
Maharaj, Chitan Bhagwat does Prabhu's hand is up.
Okay.
Chitan Bhagwat.
Ethan raised his hand. You want to say something?
Yes, Maharaj. I
Where
had
are
a
you?
question.
Kavicandra, welcome. But it's just a picture.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Okay, so who raised their hand? Chaitanya Bhagwan? Okay, there you are up in the corner for me. So go ahead and speak.
He's having problem with his mic.
Please, Batali, remove your mic and then you can talk directly. It will be better. Sorry. Please.
We got Bhakti. Someone else has a microphone on also.
Please, we all get to know that.
Okay, now I hear somebody very clearly.
Please, can you hear me now? Can everyone hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We all get to know that getting angry or anger is not good. But in some situation, I would like to know whether anger can solve situation better or best. Because here's the case, when some people move in congregation in the mass, and there's a particular person that have been doing things negatively to distort the mass in the front of the elders, that led the rest of the people, they bring them down. So one day, one of our colleagues tried to raise up his anger on him, and that makes the person not to do whatever they have been doing to the elders so that our gang should be bring down. So in this case, I would like to know whether anger can set things or can solve situation best. Because according to the Bible said that we should humble ourselves. But up to some point that you humble yourself to the extreme.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. There's a lot of noise outside where I am, and you have to speak very loud and slowly, because otherwise I miss a couple words and I don't know what you said.
Check here.
And I tried to get headphones, but they're not working.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I was asking that we all get to know that anger is not good or getting angry is not good. But at times, in our locality, our environment, sometimes anger solves some situation best. Maybe you can try to advise the person, talk to the person in a humble way, but the person will not try to listen to you or will not never listen to you. But when you put a pressure, like being angry on him, and the situation will be solved. So I would like to know whether anger can solve a situation for the best time. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Well, anger, is generally not good because it takes control over us. Prabhupada sometimes exhibited what looked like
Batali, your earpiece. Please move the earpiece. It's giving us a feedback.
turn it off quick.
Your earpiece is giving us a feedback.
Sometimes, but we don't want to really become anger, because anger it's deadly. It takes control, makes people do bad, things. Some people do like murder somebody, and they don't even remember afterward that they did it because they were so overwhelmed by anger. So if we feel anger coming on, did your mothers teach you in Africa, take 10 deep breaths? Right?
Okay.
I used to hear that, that's a good idea. That's pranayama. If you feel anger before you talk, just stop for a minute, take 10 deep breaths and see what happens, because the anger will come and go so quick. And if we just let it control us, we can do a lot of damage. You can ruin relationships. You can lose devotees, you can lose your marriage, so many things. You can get yourself killed. If you get angry at a policeman, you can get yourself arrested, So if we have anger, is what it's saying here is directed, towards the people who are blaspheming devotees and who are teaching, especially in the name of religion, irreligious activities. Like, I couldn't quite follow what you're saying about the pastor, and there's so many corrupt everywhere in every religion, in the Christian and the Buddhist and the Hindu, corrupt monks, corrupt, sannyasis, corrupt everything. That's why we need to study. We have to know what's right and what's wrong, so we can judge who to follow and how to deal with people. So you get angry at your children, and then they'll just get angry at somebody down the line. Or you might hurt them, and they'll just be waiting till they can grow up. And they can beat up somebody. They can beat up their. I remember when I was in junior high school, one of my friends, he got pretty big, and he told me, I just beat up my old man. He said, that guy's been pushing me around my whole life, and I beat the crap out of him. I didn't believe him at the time, but later I realized it's true. I've known quite a few devotees, even that they became like, wrestling champions or something, so they could beat up their father, because the father was always angry at their mother or something. So these things don't pay off. Much better to, chant the holy name. Anger comes from lust. We have to reduce the lust. I want this, I want that. I didn't get it, so I get angry. And I think, who caused me not to get it? I'll take it out on them. So we can't, we don't want to encourage anger. Krishna can encourage anger. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, He had to fight, but he was thinking, I don't want to fight. I'm going to be kind and loving and not fight. But Krishna had to make him realize, these people are really bad and you've got to fight. It's your duty. But then he kept a cool head, obviously. The anger can motivate someone. If you know that somebody's done really, really bad, they need. So we know the world is really bad. We know there's all kinds of atheists preaching religion and so many things. So we want to do something about it and spread the holy name. Use that energy. Same thing with sexual energy. It's a big energy, but don't let it just drive you to having sex all the time. Bottle it up and use it to preach. All right? I'm not hearing now, but turn it off.
Understood.
These things happen sometimes. I still don't see this. Okay. So there's a little more left here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Some people want to eat fish, meat, crabs, eggs, cowhide, snails, and so many things people eat, snakes, and other things produced by semen and blood and eaten in the form of dead bodies. Very graphic, huh? Because that's what people are eating, dead bodies, produced out of blood and semen. Others want to eat vegetables, spinach and milk, but all for the satisfaction of the tongue. So that's all sense gratification, including using extra chili. Is to be given up by Krishna conscious people so they can be more peaceful. The use of pan, hataka, betel nuts, spices used in making pan, tobacco, LSD, marijuana, opium, whiskey, coffee, and tea is indulged in to fulfill illicit demands. So there's all included just in the regulated principle. Then one can be much happier. We can practice accepting only the remnants of food offered to Krishna. It's possible to get free from Maya's victimization. Vegetables, grains, fruits, milk products, and water are proper foods to be offered to the Lord, and Krishna prescribes. But if we eat too much just because it tastes good, then we also become victims. We offer really fancy things to Krishna, but if we just want to eat it, then that's not exactly bhakti, but it's better than not offer. The person who runs here and there seeking to gratify his tongue and desire of the stomach, and we can never get Krishna. So there's a lot left in this, so time is restricted. So any more questions or comments? After this, the purports are much shorter and much easier to finish up with. This one kind of just covers everything to start. Prabhupada really got carried away on this one, which obviously means it's the whole thing is really, really important. Prabhupada makes such a long purport. All right, somebody?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much. Maharaj, we talk about sense control. Sense control. And in this age of too much distraction, it's been very difficult dealing with this. What's the best way out? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's always difficult.
Sure.
That's what Arjuna said. And we chant Hare Krishna, just keep beating your mind, chant, chant, chant. Positive. You can't keep thinking, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. Do this, do this, do this. Keep busy. Read this, chant this. Do something for Krishna. All right? There's so much distractions now, we just turn on the internet. And there's always something to distract you. Oh, this is only a couple of minutes, just check this out. There's so much important things to see and hear. So much Krishna Katha everywhere. So many nice devotees. So much service to do. We just have to be determined, like anyone else. Like athletes, it's not like somebody just became an Olympic star just because of inborn talent. They practiced a lot. Sometimes the one that wins doesn't have as much seemingly natural talent, but they practice much more. They work harder. They have their mind on a goal they want to achieve. So we have to know what our goal is. Fully surrender to Krishna. And try to make plans to work towards it. And that's why we have a book like this, Nectar of Instruction. Next verses they give you, this is good for you to do, this is not good. Very simple. 6 things that are good, 6 things that are bad. But we know the law, we know the rules, we know what to do and what not to do. It says, person in the mode of ignorance, he doesn't know what to do and he doesn't know what not to do either. So he's just floundering. All right. Now, who asked that? Who was that?
Thank you.
Who else wants to ask something? Chaitanya Bhagavat wanted to say something.
Yeah, he has put his question on the chat box, Maharaj.
Okay, let me look.
I can read it, Maharaj, if you want. He said, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Pay attention that the best attitude is selfless service. When we preach Krishna consciousness with the mindset that by giving Krishna consciousness, we get some kind of religious merit, and we do this service not fully out of compassion, but to get some religious credit. Is that the right attitude? It's all right. It's not perfect. You know, because amanina manadena, not expecting anything in return. See, if we're expecting something in return and we don't get it, you know, we may have a completely wrong idea of what we should be getting. So devotee, and so, but it's better, you know, to think like that than to not do anything for Krishna, not do any pious activity. But selfless means, you know, even nobody knows you did it, you're just doing it, you know, for Krishna's pleasure. But you get unlimited benefit. You can't stop that. Krishna will give it to you. He'll give you much more than you could ever think of. Gopis had no desire for anything for themselves, but they were getting 10 million times more pleasure than Krishna from serving Krishna. And then what I said about honoring prasadam on schedule, well, I actually read that right out of the book. That means we don't just snack and eat anytime all day long. We eat at certain times. That's, I mean, most people kind of do that. Nowadays, people don't do that. We're all running around and, you know, eating one here and there, but snacking. And that's better to do everything on schedule, so, if possible. I'm not very good at that because I don't have an appetite. And, you know, if I'm in a place where you're serving prasadam, and that's what it means. Do everything on schedule. Getting up in the morning, chanting. The more we can follow a schedule, the better, the stronger we become. Okay? Next question. In reference to Chaitanya Bhagavat question, then there's nothing after that. This is from Rasa Vilas to everyone. Oh, does the same thing apply to observing Ekadasi as we fast on Ekadasi on some special days like the appearance day? You know, what do you mean the same thing? About being on schedule for eating? If you're fasting, depends on what kind of fast you're doing. If you're fasting completely, then you're not eating, so that's not an issue. If you're fasting from grains and beans, or fasting from, you know, something, then usually there's a schedule, but many devotees, they just fast until noon, they fast until sunset, or they just take fruit. There's different kinds of fasting. The main thing is to chant more. God is. But if we can chant every day at the same time, that's the best. Nowadays, it's not so easy sometimes with the work and traveling, and different things, families. But as much as possible, get up at the same time, go to bed at the same time, and that's ideal. But if we're chanting, it doesn't matter. It's always good to chant. Not that, if someone is not chanting in the morning and they're in Maya, that's not right either. We should never think like that. All right. So I think that according to the schedule, time is up. Right? Is that right? 5:30, Chaitanya, Prema.
Prabhu has gone to attend classes for his course.
Oh, yeah. All right. So thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same station.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you very much for tolerating.
All of the devotees unmute themselves and let
Thank
us
you, Maharaj.
chant Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare